Hey, what's up, Grinders? This is Dan Gaspar, aka Mr. Tuttle 05. I am here for Friday's FanDuel Strategy Show. Joining me today, we got TJ Zwarych as well as John Breslin. You know John better as Squirrelpatrol on all the DFS sites. John, how are you doing today, man?
Good. Yeah. Like we were just saying, got multiple sports going on. So it's a great week for sports, great week for FanDuel. Excited for tonight.
Yeah, and TJ, I think this actually I know this is my first show ever with you. How are you doing? And nice to meet you, by the way.
You as well. Nice to meet you. And yeah, excited to be on with you. FanDuel is my site of choice, so I love doing these strategy shows.
Perfect. And there's a lot to talk about today. John already mentioned it. We're kind of tilting multiple sports. I know I've been with my head in MLB a lot of the morning, so I'm going to lean on you guys to kind of talk strategy and fill me in a little bit here. I know there's still a lot of situations we're monitoring for the night. I think we officially got the Lakers news that broke where all their stars are going to rest, which is unsurprising in what we were projecting for. So that's no surprise. But then I saw there's plenty of speculation surrounding teams and who's actually going to play tonight. I saw a tweet from a Toronto beat writer saying he's projecting basically like a Malachi Flynn, Armani Brooks kind of backup lineup for them on a second leg of a back-to-back. And I wouldn't be surprised if Milwaukee does something similar. Giannis is officially listed as questionable on the injury report. I would be pretty surprised if he plays. And we'll see if they kind of pull anything else. They've been known, Milwaukee unfortunately has kind of been known for kind of pulling last-second change-ups on us. So we'll have to monitor that situation closely. Is there anything I'm missing here, John? Is there anything else you have your eye on in terms of injury news or and anything that might come unexpectedly?
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of have to expect anything. I mean, it's that time of year. And I was just looking there's multiple teams with the injury report we just have now where the highest price guy expected to play is like 5,000 or 5,500. Like Oklahoma City, I think it's like 6,500, and that's almost expensive for this slate. So I think it's going to be important to monitor the news, obviously. But I think the real decision point is who do you want to spend up on? Because there's going to be plenty of value to go around.
Yeah, and that's actually what I've found difficult as the season has kind of come to an end is who to spend the money on. Like we have plenty of value plays, and then you kind of have to weigh like the teams that are actually playing for motivation. And some of that is kind of iffy. Like some of these teams, we actually don't know if they want to lose because of playoff seeding and better matchups, first round matchups, things like that. But yeah, let's start out there with who to spend up on. TJ, do you have a preferred spend up on the slate?
Well, I think my preferred route to go in terms of spend ups today is with the Brooklyn Nets. And the reason for that is these guys, they're still trying to win. They're fighting with Cleveland, and that's who they're playing. So like these teams are separated by one game. So both of these two teams have been just absolutely grinding their starters huge minutes lately. We've seen Kyrie and KD both up over 40 minutes. And on the other side of this Cleveland side, we've seen the same thing from Darius Garland. So I think this game is a really fun one to target for the spend ups, because while we typically would usually set to some type of group where we don't want to play Kyrie and Kevin Durant together, this is something that Lucha and I talked about on the morning grind. If we end up getting Giannis ruled out and there aren't that many spend up options, because even though Luka's going to project really well, he could be out of the game by early third quarter. So because of that, I think this is actually the type of day where you could play Durant and Irving on the same lineup because they're both going to be playing 40 minutes. And especially on FanDuel where Kyrie Irving's 9,400, I think that's definitely an option. So Kyrie is going to be the chalky option, but I definitely like Kevin Durant as a lower owned spend up tonight as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. Feel free to pair them together. It feels a little weird on a full slate to do that, but I think that's a great point. We don't have a ton of places to spend money, and we know if that game stays close, which it should, those guys have 40, even 40 plus minutes in them. So I think that's a good point. Let's stick with Kyrie. Let's stick with the point guard position. John, what's your take on Kyrie? Are you okay with that chalk? Is there somewhere else you're looking? Just give me your feel on the position in general.
Yeah, so I think I agree that like Brooklyn guys are going to be the first place I turn for spend ups, just because it's a meaningful game, and I agree. You compare Kyrie and Kevin Durant together. I think they've been playing huge minutes over the last last few games. I think pretty much over 40 minutes the last 4 games, playing the entire second halves. So I think Kyrie's a great option. If you're looking to spend down, like Xavier Simpson, the Oklahoma City guy, I mean, he's been playing like 39 and 44 minutes his 2 games. I mean, that's going to give you points. He's priced up at 4,700 now, but for a guy that's playing 40 minutes, that's still a really good price. And then I think you can look, LaMelo Ball, that Charlotte-Chicago game, I think we're going to see the starters there. So that should be somewhat typical, like a typical NBA game. So LaMelo's always in play. And then there's an interesting pivot. You could go to Darius Garland, and maybe you actually pair like Darius Garland with Kevin Durant if you want to spend up. There's going to be plenty of value and plenty of money. So we can pair Garland with Kevin Durant instead of Irving.
Yeah, I like that call. Little game stack there. Few things I'll throw at myself real quick. Kade Cunningham. So the consensus on him, we saw him, it was like 3 games ago, I think it was. He started, played 7 minutes, and that was it. And then we kind of all assumed, and every projection site out there kind of assumed that they were going to limit him when he played their last game, and that wasn't the case at all. He played heavy minutes. I believe it was mid-30s minutes. I still think we're giving him a projection that's more, high 20s type of thing. So I think he's kind of an interesting place to spend money because I don't think anybody will own him. There's obvious risk there. We saw the risk there. And if Detroit just wants to go and not play him, that's completely possible, and it very well could happen. But like he could get into the mid-30s minutes again and be a decent play.
What was the explanation for why he just played like 8 minutes? That would seem to be the opposite of what they're trying to do if it's like a rookie of the year push.
Right. So I think it was semi-injury related, but it wasn't like anything extremely serious because he did sit the next game technically because of an injury. But it's so hard to read into injury reports to know if they're real or not. So I think it was injury related, but I'm not 100% sure on the exact reasoning. But yeah, I mean, you still see pretty middling projections on him everywhere when he has actually some decent upside. He does have Kade Cunningham multi-positional eligibility on FanDuel, so you can play him at shooting guard as well. TJ, who are your favorite shooting guard plays on FanDuel today?
So a couple other point guards I want to touch on real quick. I've just Drew Holiday for if Giannis does get ruled out will be very interesting. Malachi Flynn, if we get Trent and Van Vliet ruled out, will become very interesting, 4,900. And we got news just a little bit before we started the show that Chris Dunn won't be playing. And so I think that solidifies minutes quite a bit more for Brandon Williams. And at 6,400, he has a very, very low floor, but he's shown that he has a very high ceiling at times as well. So with no Chris Dunn, his minutes should be a little bit more secure. I think that's somebody you can go to, especially if you're wanting to play Luka Doncic. The last 2 guys I want to mention are these Houston guys playing against Toronto, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr. They've shown very high ceilings. And I like the Kade Cunningham call for if we're going to be playing some Milwaukee guys with no Giannis, then Cunningham could be an interesting high upside run back. For shooting guard, I think that's where we're starting to get some of our very best values on the slate. I think Talen Horton-Tucker, shooting guard and small forward, dropped 40 real points last night in 39 minutes. or 37 minutes, whatever it was. He and Malik Monk for the Lakers, I think, are just both amazing plays going up against OKC. Another guy that's just still wildly underpriced. We talked about wanting to pay up for these Nets guys like Kyrie and like Kevin Durant. Karis Levert still 5,400. Like, it's still or 5,600. Sorry, way too cheap of a price tag for him. And so that's kind of a fun little. I'm kind of looking forward to stacking up this Nets game with the high price guys, and then maybe Garland if I can fit him, but that might be tough if I want to get Luka. And then running it back with Levert, with maybe Markkanen, maybe Love. But I really like Levert at shooting guard. And then Zach LaVine, way too cheap, 6,900. Playing against somebody that I know you like in the other half of the game, so maybe I'll let you touch on that one. But the Holiday and Middleton, these Milwaukee guys, Connaughton, if we see even more of them sit. But those are mostly the guys I like, and then I'll throw it to you, Tuttle, because I know you got a shooting guard on that Charlotte side.
Yeah, Terry Rozier. I was all excited about him. I played him last night. Blowout, and he didn't see any fourth quarter minutes, didn't see his last rotation at all. Still ended up with 41 plus FanDuel points, and he's too cheap. That game, we've mentioned Brooklyn and Cleveland a lot. The Chicago-Charlotte game we could potentially see as a game where both teams are actually trying, and we can see starters play full minutes. So kind of similar concept there. And I wanted to go back to real quick. You mentioned Brandon Williams. I wanted to make a point on our projections, because I know I was in our projection team chat a little bit earlier today, and they came in with a real low minutes number on him because he was quote unquote limited in their last game. It's kind of the similar situation almost to Kade that we were talking about earlier, where we actually don't know how serious of an injury it was. We don't really necessarily know exactly why they were bringing him off the bench behind Dunn. He could be back up to playing 30 or mid-30s minutes. So I like that call. And he's, again, not going to see a whole lot of ownership just because of the current projection we have on him. So feel free, on players like that, if you have a little bit different read than the projections team, like, that's fine. There's a lot of guesswork in projections this time of year. So feel free to go up into lineup HQ like I am here. You see Brandon Williams, you think he's going to, play 30 minutes. His projection will change because the rates are in there. I know we've had kind of situations like that with the Thunder lately, where like their situation is so hard to project, especially 2 games ago when we didn't know 100% what they were going to do. We came out with relatively low minutes on them, and they end up playing 40 minutes. Like, that's really hard to project a player for 40 minutes. But if you really think that's the likeliest outcome, feel free to make those edits yourself. Okay, John.
The last thing I'd say with Williams is he's not somebody I'd play unless you're playing Luka. If you're playing Luka Doncic and you're hoping for a ceiling out of him, you're hoping that this game can be 15 points going into the fourth quarter and not 35 points, Brandon Williams would probably be a good reason that they could get there. And if he is still limited, he doesn't start, and maybe you see Ben McLemore enter the starting lineup, then that makes him a very, very interesting value play as well. And if you're MMEing, I think McLemore is somebody you might want to keep in your pool anyways. He played 20 plus minutes last game with Dunn starting. So with Dunn out of the lineup, I think he'd be an interesting play. I think he probably picks up 30 minutes.
Good point. John, up to you now. Do you have any takes at the position?
I'm kind of interested in some of the Houston guys that TJ mentioned, because we have them projected. I mean, they're kind of at their highest projected the point total for the season, but their salaries have come up so much because of what they've been doing in the last 4 or 5 games that they're not really popping in optimal lineups. The ownership is down at around 1% for Jalen Green and Kevin Porter. Jalen Green, I guess, shooting guard. I think Kevin Porter's like point guard, small forward, has that weird multi-eligibility. These guys are really interesting. I mean, they've been going up for 40, 50 fantasy points. And if they're really going to be at 1% ownership, that's really interesting, because I think they might be underprojected. I think we might be underprojecting them. I think everybody might be underprojecting them, because we're looking at the numbers they put up when Christian Wood was in the lineup. and we're kind of extrapolating those rates, I mean, these guys are taking all the shots. And like it's Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, and Josh Christopher. So I think the Houston guys are really interesting, and Kevin Porter, even at the small forward position, is really interesting.
Yeah, I like that. And good point. I mean, Jalen Green specifically, who's turned it up recently, projection systems are going on, his season long rates, and they're going to look drastically different than, what he's done recently. One last guy I'll throw out, just because I feel like this is going to happen, and it might be a little too out there to actually play. But the Lakers the Lakers G League lost last night. And so as a result, they now have Mason Jones, who put up 33 points last night. He was almost, voted G League MVP. Like, this is a guy that if he plays, he's going to chuck. We can't reasonably project him for a lot of minutes at this, currently, until we get some sort of beat reporter speculation or something saying, hey, expect some Mason Jones to start. But if you look at the veterans who played last night for the Lakers, and you kind of assume they don't want to play these guys like Wayne Ellington, DJ Augustin, even, like, there's a decent amount of minutes still to go around. So Mason Jones, I'll just say he's somebody to keep an eye on. Again, I would like more clarity surrounding that situation, but if we get clarity, then his ownership will raise. So it's kind of a, two-sided sword there. But yeah, Mason Jones, keep him in your mind in case, and stay on the lookout for information regarding him. But yeah, let's go to small forward now. This is kind of where things get messy. We have Kevin Durant, Giannis up top. Giannis again is questionable. Probably going to sit, would be my best guess. We talked a lot about Kevin Durant, so I don't think we need to go into further conversation about him, or even Talen Horton-Tucker, who has small forward eligibility. Are there other guys you're looking at playing here, TJ?
Yeah, sorry, you just had me looking into Mason Jones there. And so as I'm for spend up options, I mean, DeRozan, you could take shots on. He's not my personal favorite. Same with Jimmy Butler. Like, he's going to project out well, but it's just not my favorite place to go on this slate. I'd rather go to Kevin Porter Jr., who also has that small forward eligibility, 8,400. RJ Barrett, if you're still crazy enough to play cash at this time, 7,600 is a great cash gameplay and a solid tournament option too, as long as his ownership doesn't get too high. Middleton will obviously be a great play if he plays and Giannis doesn't, but we could end up seeing him sitting as well. We really don't know with this Milwaukee situation yet. And so if that does happen, all of a sudden we can look at guys like Nwora opening up. Lauri Markkanen, I think, is interesting. Sadiq Bey, Denny Avdia, like some of these mid-range guys I think are okay to take shots on if you're running lots of lineups, but I don't think are targets. And Gary Trent Jr., like, he might sit, but if we get another Van Vliet game out and Gary Trent Jr. starts at point guard and it's not Malachi Flynn, then he is an absolutely fantastic play. So that's another one. There's Levert that I mentioned at the position before. Obviously, Horton-Tucker is probably the top value on the slate. And I really don't think you got to go anywhere outside of that pool there. There's some guys like Corey Kispert who are going to project well. But does Corey Kispert really have a ceiling? Like, at this point of the season, you're not looking for 20, 25 out of your 3K guys. You're looking for 40 out of your 3.5K guys. So I think that's about the pool I'd stick to. The last guy I forgot to mention, who is also a great play, Jalen Horde.
Perfect. That's a perfect transition, because I wanted John's thoughts on Jalen Horde, because I've seen John tilting Jalen Horde on Twitter. John, let's hear your Jalen Horde takes here.
I was jumping out of my skin because he didn't mention Jalen Horde, and he was like, "Oh, I got one more guy. I'm like, it better be Horde."
Yeah. I was like looking through the people I don't currently have in my dummy lineup, and so I was like, "Yep, he's good. But then I skipped Horde because he is in my dummy lineup.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I put it on Twitter. Like, this guy came off his couch in Oklahoma City, and he was just sitting around, drinking his orange juice or whatever in the morning, and Oklahoma City calls him up. And I know he was on Oklahoma City's like G League team or whatever. And they're like, hey, we got an opening. Like, we got 4 guys tonight. How'd you like to be in the starting lineup? And he goes out and pulls down 20 rebounds. And that's insane. But then he put up 60 FanDuel points a couple nights ago, 38. I mean, for whatever reason, Jalen Horde is the guy the Thunder have said, just go nuts. Just, go out there, do whatever you want to do. And yeah, he's still only priced at 6,000. I mean, it's appealing. I have a lot of interest in the guy that can, put up 20 rebounds, 20 points, coming off his couch. So I mean, he's playing a Lakers team that's obviously folded. So I think he's definitely going to be one of the guys I'm highest owned on tonight is Jalen Horde. And then, I think Kevin Durant's probably my top spend up on the slate. I think Taylor Horton Tucker is probably the best value in optimal lineups. And then, Denny Avdia is a guy, so, the Wizards lottery pick from 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, he's a guy that they want to look good. It's going to make the general manager look good going into the offseason. So I think he's a guy with Porzingis and Caldwell Pope out. I think Denny Avdia is a guy, and also Rui Hachimura is another Wizards lottery pick that isn't going to project as well, but I think he's somebody that they could play a lot of minutes and give a lot of shots to.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Sorry, and I like the Wiz call too, because I find myself overlooking them, or I found myself overlooking them at first too, and I think they'll probably go a little bit overlooked on the slate. So yeah, I like the Wizards call. I guess power forward. This is another position. Again, we got Giannis that has multi-positional eligibility here. Siakam, who we might not even see play. You can play Kevin Durant here again, and then it drops off pretty quickly. TJ, it drops off real fast. So looking at that, if you're playing Durant tonight, are you playing him small forward, power forward, or where are you playing him most likely, or in the majority of your lineups? And then after Kevin Durant, who are you most excited about playing?
Yeah, so he'll probably be in the power forward spot for me, just because I think my favorite positions on today's slate are the point guard through small forward. There's just so many great plays there that I love. But so Durant will probably be a power forward for me. I mean, if Siakam plays and these other guys get ruled out, he's shown that he is ready to roll right now. Like, he is playing superstar basketball. Shout out to Siakam and the Raptors. I love it. In that same game, I think somebody who has great tournament upside, large field stuff, you're trying to win that $30,000 first prize on FanDuel. Şengün, I think, even though he's going to have a sticker shock and not many people are going to play him at 7K, but he still has a very high ceiling. And so Şengün, somebody I'd be interested in for tournaments. Isaiah Roby in that same OKC Lakers game. They're still throwing him out there for minutes. He fouled out last game, and so that was the only reason he played 26 minutes. But he's been playing very well. And at that same price tag, Obi Toppin, it's gross paying $6,500 for Obi Toppin, but he played 43 minutes last game. And there's no Mitchell Robinson, there's no Julius Randle. Tibbs runs his guys out for as long as they want to be out there for. So if he can stay out of foul trouble and plays 40 plus minutes again, he should be a solid play. I mentioned Lauri Markkanen before. Drew Eubanks isn't the best play, but that's somebody that is way cheaper on FanDuel and has had a very big price decrease lately. And that's somebody that if you want to play Luka, that's an interesting way to run it back with some Brandon Williams and some Drew Eubanks. Bobby Portis will be a strong option if Giannis is ruled out. I know he disappointed a lot of people the other night, and now that he's been priced up a little bit, he's not the same crazy smash that he looked to be before. But I think really the only other two players I'm going to be looking at in the cheap range would be Kevin Love for tournaments. And then finally, the other guy that is interesting to look at is Reggie Perry for Portland. He's played 21 minutes last game, picked up 5 fouls in those 21 minutes, but this guy is active. He just goes out there, he gets rebounds, he gets steals, he gets blocks. So that's somebody that I think is kind of interesting. And then we also have to keep an eye on this Raptor situation just based on the news.
Yeah. So my mind is running a million miles a minute because every time I think of Reggie Perry, I can't get the name of it. There used to be a guy, he was a journeyman.
Reggie Evans.
Reggie Evans, yes. And I always make that comparison. Yeah. Reggie Evans, talking about, he's like Jalen Horde levels of rebounding talent. Reggie Evans, that's all I could do.
Everybody's out. Reggie Evans is going to get 28 minutes. Lock him in because he's going to have 6 points, 18 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks.
Yeah, I love that guy. Okay, John, let's go to you. Not a whole lot left to pick over here at the position. Again, it's not that great. Do you have anybody else you want to add, or anybody you want to throw your stamp on?
Yeah, I think Obi Toppin is really interesting. I mean, the two guys I'm particularly interested after Kevin Durant, who has the multi-position eligibility, Isaiah Roby and Obi Toppin at the same exact price. I was reading, I think it's a New York Post article a couple of days ago. They were talking about the Knicks and the lack of tradable assets they have, and how they're trying to build up their younger players as the season ends. Because they don't have any tradable assets. And like since then, Obi Toppin's played like 31, then 35, then 43 minutes. And he's taking increased shots, 20 points, 19 points. I'm definitely interested in Toppin. He's a guy he's one of those guys where the price has gone up thousands of dollars, but with the playing time he's seeing and shots he's seeing, usage, he might be worth it. And Isaiah Roby is that same price, same theme. For whatever reason, the Thunder are rolling him out and saying, all right, go have at it against the Lakers. So Toppin and Roby, I think it's the same price.
Yeah, I like that. The last guy I'll mention, because I played him last night. I'm like, no way Dwight Howard gets good run. He got good run. Dwight Howard got good run last night. Wenyen Gabriel, guy's a hacking machine when he plays. He's very sporadic with his fantasy production. At least it feels like either nothing, otherwise he's throwing up 2 points per minute. So he's got a very wide range of outcomes. And again, that Laker game starts an hour after everybody else. So you would have to do some guesswork if you're going to play Wenyen Gabriel. But he is somebody that I think would project for significantly better if we took Dwight Howard out of the projections, which I think he might end up resting. Again, that's pure guesswork. So you'll have to keep your eye on news to be able to actually play him, but keep him in mind as well.
Center position. You'll have a lot of flexibility there too if you are playing lots of people from that game. Like if you have Roby at the power forward position and you have Dwight Howard at center, you're leaving some salary on the table, but you can just swap Roby to center and then Wenyen Gabriel there at power forward.
Yeah, that's a good call on more reasons to load up more players on that game. Unfortunately, you can't spend a whole lot of money to give yourself like the opportunity to be able to get the max swaps in there. But yeah, maybe that's an extra reason why you throw, Jalen Horde in a lineup that has more of those Lakers OKC players in it. Give you some more swaps. Center, we had a projections issue with Rudy Gobert earlier. He was not going to score 100 fantasy points like we had projected earlier today. Don't worry, that is now fixed. We do have him though as the top projected player at this position. Are you interested in Gobert, TJ, or are you kind of looking elsewhere?
I mean, he's definitely interesting based on the projection, but like that's not somewhere I'm going. There's other places I like spending up, like the Durant. I'd rather take a shot on Doncic to score 70 points in the first half. That's something he could do. He literally just did that the other day against the Lakers. Nikola Vucevic, I think, is interesting against Charlotte. Absolutely smash. All centers smash Charlotte, and he's just so cheap. Şengün, we talked about at the small forward position. The power forward position, same as Bobby Portis and Eubanks and Love. Mostly, I don't honestly love this position very much. Like, there's a lot of these power forwards who are eligible at centers who I like tonight, and that's not common. Usually, anytime someone has power forward eligibility, that's where I'm playing them. But if Dwight Howard plays, I definitely think he's interesting. And because I want to play Roby, it gives me some flexibility for if he gets ruled out. And there's some late swap opportunity there. I can put Roby in at center, and Gabriel will be an option. And I'm just kind of looking at who else my power forward options are going to be. If there's anybody other than Gabriel, if I have 4,300 here, I mean, Jeremiah Robinson Earl hasn't been playing any minutes. So yeah, you're going to be playing Gabriel in that situation if Howard gets ruled out. But I really don't mind that having that flexibility of going Howard there, as long as you have those other guys in your lineup to be able to swap.
Yeah, and the key point there too, I think, is it's easier to go, Howard to Gabriel than it is to Gabriel to like it's easier just to eat the salary. So keep that in mind. And I will say my boy Wenyen Gabriel was just signed, literally just announced that he was signed to a actual NBA contract as opposed to the two-way contract. So he's got that going for him. Maybe it's like the the contract narrative. I need to run that past Alan Lem and Eric Napsterman to see if that passes the narrative street or not. But yeah, Wenyen Gabriel just signed the contract.
And then a couple other cheap shots I think you can take too. Dwight Powell, if you're playing Luka and you're playing a couple of these Portland guys, you're hoping maybe this game stays close. I think he's reasonable. Again, keep an eye on this Raptors situation. Chris Boucher is really cheap, but he also left last game early with a facial laceration. And then without Porzingis, you also have these Washington guys. Daniel Gafford, 4,300 to take a shot on. JaVale McGee, disappointed everyone as major chalk, but if you're running at 150, that's somebody who's still keeping your pool. And as well as Thomas Bryant, minimum price. Maybe he plays a little bit. I'm not going to go there, but if you're running 150, there are crazier things that you can do.
Yeah. John, there's some guys. So I want your take on this because I was kind of scrolling through the center list, and the Brooklyn guys, I feel like their minutes could range multiple ways. Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton. Do you have any interest on those guys? Like, we're currently projecting Drummond for 22 minutes. I think we have Claxton for 22 minutes as well. And I think you could potentially see these guys creep up, or Drummond especially creep up into like the 26-minute range. Do you have any interest in Brooklyn? And if not, where are you looking?
They're not really on my short list just because I think they're going to eat into each other's production, and it's so hard. I mean, there's a chance one of them gets into foul trouble, and then maybe the other one's playing more of an outsized role. But I think the offense there is going to be Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and then the centers are expected to really just split the minutes. Like I think it'll be Claxton and Drummond splitting the minutes. I mean, maybe Claxton is playing a little bit more. Maybe Drummond's really trending down. So I think I'm going to take a risk on one of them. I think it would be Claxton. But I think this is the worst position for value on the slate. I think Isaiah Roby is probably the guy I'm going to be highest owned on. Daniel Gafford is somebody I'm interested in. I expect he's probably going to get the start with Porzingis out, and he's a very high point per minute player. One guy I don't think we've mentioned, Jericho Sims with the Knicks. I mean, he had a big game last game. My guess is he's going to start again with Mitchell Robinson out. But 39.6 FanDuel points, 35 minutes last start. So I think he's priced up to 4,800 now. So he's another guy that's going to give you sticker shock. But if he puts up a game like last game, that 39 FanDuel points looks good at 4,800.
For sure.
This is exclusively if you're running 150, but somebody I think you can take shots on in 2 or 3% of your lineups is Lamarcus Aldridge. 2 games ago, he played 16 minutes. They just cut James Johnson. This is a very important game. He finally got back in the lineup, but because he hasn't been playing, he's 3,800. If Lamarcus Aldridge plays 20 minutes, he could have 30 points at 3,800 and be a very fantastic player. If he all of a sudden got 24 minutes, he could break the slate. So that's somebody that if you're running lots of lineups, I think you keep in your pool and just get a little bit of.
Yep. That's a good point. And the other situation I'll mention too, that we kind of glossed over, mentioned it multiple times, that Toronto might get weird. They have plenty of players here at the center position we could be looking at if they run kind of a different lineup. Chris Boucher's 4,600. Precious Achua's 3,900. So we could definitely get value out of Toronto, and Houston has been just absolutely horrendous defending opposing bigs. So that's another situation I would monitor. Again, we're doing this show a little bit early on Friday, so plenty of things could still change. But do you guys want to end with a take? Do you guys want to get out of here? Let me know if you have a take. If not, don't feel pressured.
I think that's a great idea to keep monitoring that Toronto situation. I didn't even realize how cheap Precious was. But he played 40 minutes last game, and now he's questionable with his knees. So keep an eye. And Thaddeus Young is another guy who played 30 minutes last game. Keep an eye on the Raptors starters. Kem Birch will never be interesting, but Thad Young and Precious Achua in the starting lineup definitely would be. And if you get Precious ruled out and Chris Boucher in the starting lineup, he's probably the best center option on the slate.
Yep. John, you got anything you want to leave us with? Can be at any position, any hot take, anything like that?
Just, it's a good night to get weird. Like, don't be afraid to play guys that are way off on projections, just because, you know, projections are the hardest at this time of year. We don't know who's going to be playing minutes. Like, don't be afraid to get weird. Don't be afraid to play narratives. I mean, it's a fun night for NBA if you just kind of let yourself go and play who you want.
And with that in mind, I'll give my take of Mason Jones is the hot take. He plays, he starts, is my hot take, and he gets you, let's say, 30 FanDuel points.
That's Mason Jones, because of you talking about him and then me realizing I had $3,500 at the shooting guard position in my last spot.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, I might be on that train with you.
We call that fate right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to do it then for today's show. Go ahead and go over to FanDuel. They have the layup today. That's the biggest contest, $9.99 to enter, 30K to first. And if you have any feedback for us, anything you want to hear on these shows going forward, we will be doing MLB, but it will be every Friday. It's going to be FanDuel specifically based. So any sort of strategy you might have for MLB moving forward, make sure to reach out to us on Twitter, shoot support in email, anything like that. But yeah, that's going to do it for myself, John, and TJ. Thanks for tuning in.